DFMCO. Hello, I'm Cade Thomas, and welcome to Double Feature Movie Club. This week is our 51st episode, and we are talking about two Michael Fassbender movies, 2014's Frank, and the new release on Netflix called The Killer, which was directed by David Fincher. I am joined this week with Diane. Diane, how are you doing?
Hey, great. How are you?
I am pretty great. So yes, it's Michael Fassbender night. Our first time ever doing Michael Fassbender. On the show, talking about Michael Fassbender on the show. I don't know. How have you been? First off.
Well, I've been a little bit under the weather, but I did watch two shows I think you would be really interested in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the first one was about dog dancing. Dog dancing competitions.
Okay.
On Hulu, yeah. And let me tell you, it's fierce.
It's fierce.
Competitive sport is what it is. People teaching their dogs to dance.
Wow.
And it was really an interesting, they're following these 3 or 4 or 5 different competitors, like almost like a reality TV. Each one gets so much time. And there's 6 episodes. We just finished the 3rd episode, and I cannot wait to see what happens next.
Is this like Best in Show, the Christopher Guest movie, where about the dog competition?
Kind of. In a sense, yeah. In a sense. Yeah, we've got the narcissistic, person who has evidently children and a husband and a dog breeding, company, but is all over the world doing dog dancing competitions. I actually saw her on The View a couple of weeks ago. And then there's the real, the person who has the rescue dog that, wants to prove to the world the rescue dogs are the world's best. Right, Ollie? Where'd he go? Let me see. Where'd he go? Ollie is a rescue dog. Yes. Anyway, so that was, I thought, I'm glad I watched it. Anyway.
That's a world that I wish I knew more about. I wish I knew more about, but that fascinates me from a distance, I guess. Because that is a whole world of its own. These dog competitions and the people that are involved in that.
It certainly is a world of its own, and I think these dogs love their owners more than which way? That one. This one over here does. See how this one doesn't even notice that I'm talking about him. And in the show, all you see is how much these dogs are willing to do anything for their owners. And mine is not even willing to. It won't even sit on my lap. So he's got his own ego thing going on. But anyway, it was interesting. And I thought, I thought somebody went to one of these competitions. This is huge, evidently. On an annual basis, they have this huge show in London. It's called Krups, I think, something like that, and a huge dog show. And they have 2 categories. One's freestyle, and one is a close heel. I'm sure it had a name, and Ava will remember it, but I don't. Anyway, because I was a little bit under the weather at the time I watched it. But I thought somebody went to one of these, or their auntie, like me, drug them to it, and they said, "What a great idea for a documentary."
Yeah.
And then it won something. That documentary won something. And then now it's on Netflix. I thought, I know a filmmaker. All we need to do is find whatever it is that, people are obsessed with like that.
Yeah. I mean, anything that's its own little world that, that people take to the extreme is always good for documentaries.
It's definitely its own little world, but a big one, a bigger world than I realized. It was pretty massive. But anyway, so that was
one of our professors, not to keep talking about this.
I know, I'm more excited about the second thing, but okay.
One of our professors does dog competition, or from college. And I've always wanted to have her on, like, Cade and Friends, and kind of talk about that aspect of how she, she's not the trainer, but she owns these dogs. And just that just seems so interesting. I don't know. I don't know how that all works. So I'd love to have her on sometime where we can talk about all that. But
because I can't imagine what it's like to be the owner of the dog and not the trainer. I watch dog shows on, whenever they're on TV, and stuff. I've watched them and think, these trainers have 4 or 5 dogs in one show, and thank God they're not, competing against each other, but still, how do you have time for that? And then if you ever drive by the City Center over in Claremore when they're having the big dog show there, and they set up these little fences for all these little dogs, and these little dogs ride in motorhomes all year long, and I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's its own little world. Here, I got this. Whoa, don't tear down the whole thing. See, this is Ollie. See Ollie's certificate?
Therapy dog.
He is a therapy dog. As you can see, though, Ollie doesn't do much therapy, but other for himself, right? How is that foot, Ollie? Are you fixing it? Yeah, see? Then, yeah. He would never make it in the show circuit at all. Unless it's about him, which is not about him. But anyway. So can I tell you about the second thing I watched? I watched it today. Yes. And it freaked me out so bad. It's 3 episodes on Netflix, and it's called Escaping Twin Flames, which you can do hashtag Twin Flames on Instagram, Facebook, or your favorite social media, and you'll find out a lot about it. And I hate to even say that because it is a cult, and people sign up in this cult, and it's really, really scary. I mean, over the course of time, I'm not sure exactly when it started. It's still going on. They're still recruiting. It started out as just this pyramid scheme to where they're life coaches, right? And they're going to help you find true love. It always starts with true love. We're going to find a lot of lonely people out there. So let's help you find true love. And all you have to do is pay $222 for a session once a month, or however much that adds up to over the course of a year. And we will coach you on how to find your true flame, which should be your soul mate, I guess.
Interesting.
And in the course of this, they will take and latch on to anyone's insecurities and just break them apart. They had this documentary had a sociologist and psychologist, and this is exactly how you break down somebody's head, and then insert your own ideas into what they're thinking. They had one woman so convinced this guy was her true flame that he had to get a restraining order on her. She spent 6 months in jail for stalking him. I mean, and you think, how could anybody, fall for that? But they broke her down over the course of time with these sessions and these one-on-one sessions. But what they over the course of time, they took and built a pyramid structure where each level you become a coach, and then you start breaking people down. And some of the people who had left this cult were, obviously interviewed, and they, are struggling with how much abuse they applied onto other individuals and turning them into, these, I don't want to call them zombies, but they're in a cult. And they, of course, separate them from their families. I mean, it's all, you just mark the box, right? And all that. So, and right now, there is no law enforcement looking into them. Unless the FBI is. You wouldn't necessarily know if they were or not. But yeah, it was pretty scary. Pretty scary deal. And I forgot which group was a journalist who uncovered all this and is the one that put together the documentary. I'd have to look to see what group she's with. It was Politico or somebody like that. Anyway, it just really interesting. Just freaked me out a little bit.
I'll have to watch that. I mean, if we're talking about things that we've watched and everything, and this weekend I went to go see the Hunger Games movie, the new one.
You felt good enough to get off the couch and go watch
yes.
the Hunger Games movie? I just want to know, did you eat any popcorn?
No.
Yeah, no. How was it?
I enjoyed it. It was there's like 2 hours and like everything is too long, and it had this, so it was told in like these 3 acts, and like they say part 1, part 2, part 3, and then they have an epilogue, and the third part, it just felt like I don't understand when it's that long, and you have like the first two parts was enough. That was the story. I mean, that's the, and it fits the pattern that we've seen with other movies, and then it continues, which I understand is the sort of point of the thing. But split it into two movies, make more money. I'm telling them how they should have done this, because now they've used the only other book that they have in this series, so they could have split it, and it would have made sense narratively to have these as two movies, and even went further from when the third part was down President Snow's career, and that could have been a full movie, like the fall of him and everything, or the rise, however you want to look at it. And just take the first two parts, make that your first movie, do the third part, and then extend that out a little bit and make that a second movie, and it would have been perfect. But no, instead they've tried to make this 2-hour monstrosity of a film that is, by the time you get to the third part, I'm like, okay, we've just had our big finale, and now we're going to sit here for another 45 minutes and tell this whole other story that is good and fine. It's just, but they're like, oh God, we're losing the audience, and we still have all this narrative ground to do, and it just didn't work, that third part. But it was good. I liked it at the end of the day.
You know, I would think that the story of his rise to power and the corruption of that in and of itself would be a good movie. It's a good story. You know, what it does with his family and the people around him, and, you know, how it changes him. That, you know, good origin story kind of thing. Kind of like Darth. Yes.
Well, I mean, so, yeah, I mean, I don't want to go into spoilers with that, but I mean, it's fast, like, and even when they end it, like, it's wrapped up a lot of loose ends, but it has, it's still, I mean, that character is fascinating, and they did a really good job of making that character. I mean, it is, from the trailers, I guess you wouldn't see. I have read the first 3 Hunger Games books, watched the movies. They were right in the right time range. I did not read this book when it came out, but I was like, when they said they'd make a movie, I'm like, fine, I'll just watch the movie. But so I knew enough of Lucy Gray, the Snow, all these characters, and all the sort of references and all that. But I was interested to see how they sort of just told it without that. But the trailers seemed to suggest that it was like her story, like it was Lucy Gray's story, and it's very much not. It's very much President Snow. It's very much Snow's story, and it's told from his perspective. So it is kind of fascinating that they did that, and it is interesting. I mean, he's an interesting character. He's obviously an awful person, and it's this tragedy. But I think it was kind of interesting to see something from an anti-hero's perspective, because we don't get that a lot in cinema anymore. Someone who's just who could have gone either direction, but falls to the bad side and does evil things. I mean, I think it was an interesting story, and it was done interestingly. It still had the Susan Collins things of, like, during a climactic moment, he bumps his head and then he wakes up in a hospital. Like, there's these very specific things that I don't know how to write us out of this. He bonks his head and he wakes up in a hospital later. But yeah, I don't know. It's good, nonetheless. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was fine.
So when it comes out on streaming, watch it.
Yeah, watch it. I think it's really I like the world a lot of Hunger Games, and I like the themes. The storytelling gets in the way a lot of how it's done, but I also like the first 3 Hunger Games was just probably, the movies were probably just the best casting I've seen in like blockbuster movies. I mean, just the fact that you have, Philip Seymour Hoffman and Julianne Moore and all of just Woody Harrelson, like, I mean, all of these really great casting, and they're just having like this great time, and they're 100% committed to these roles. And I mean, Lenny Kravitz, and I mean, it goes, list goes on and on. And this one, Viola Davis and Peter Dinklage are really good in it. They're both in it, and they're really fun roles, and interesting roles. So they're well worth watching it too for.
I think Donald Sutherland is this generation's best bad guy.
Mm.
He can be so evil. Even when he's not trying, he can be so evil.
And that was, like every casting decision was just so inspired. Like that, like just Donald Sutherland. I mean, like that, I mean, to take what was like, like they're like, no, we're going to put these prominent actors. I mean, they may not mean a lot to this teenage audience that's watching this when it was coming out, but like these really just great character actors that are just pitch perfect for each and every one of these things. And they just nailed it. Donald Sutherland was excellent in that role. Yeah,
he really was.
And this guy plays a good young Donald Sutherland. So. That's
who was the girl that played the outlandish kind of the host. What was her name? Stanley Tucci obviously was great.
Stanley Tucci.
She went on to
Elizabeth.
make and direct. Yeah.
Elizabeth whatever. Yes, she directed Cocaine Bear.
I know, she did. One of my favorite movies.
Whatever her name is.
Cocaine Bear, right?
Yeah. She's done a lot of things. She was in 30 Rock. She was in a lot of things.
Really talented.
Perfect. Yeah, very talented. She directed the Charlie's Angels.
With Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. She was in it too.
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Someone could tell us what the last name of this
what
Elizabeth
her
lady.
last name was. Oh my gosh. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know. And she had recently had a game show on TV.
Yes.
Too.
Elizabeth Banks.
Thank you. Elizabeth Banks. You had the Elizabeth down right.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those hard names.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who also did a really good. Jason Schwartzman plays, I would assume, the father of Stanley Tucci's character. He's the first host of the Hunger Games. He also has the last name Flickerman. He's like the first host of it. And he's like this weatherman / Banks. Thank you, Ava. Late. There's a delay.
Better late than never.
Yeah. He plays this father of him, or the first host, and he has the last name Flickerman as well. And he's really fun. Like, he's having fun with, I mean, obviously he's selling the sort of uncaring nature of this sort of like this showy kind of glitzy sort of like, you know, how the Capitol views the deaths of these kids from these other districts. Like he's selling that aspect of it really well. And it seems like a lot of improv, but it works and that sort of thing, because it comes off as so sort of callous, and I mean, it's funny, but in a way that you're like, you don't like want to laugh at it, but sometimes you can't. Like, I mean, but he's
just like Stanley Tucci.
Yes.
Yeah. Same role.
Yeah.
Some of his lines is like, oh my gosh, and it's hilarious. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What did he say? Oh,
yeah.
You know, I never read those books. Usually I've read the books, but those I never read. And but I really enjoyed the movies.
Yes.
So I never went back and read the books, because then I would, you know, I'd be comparing them.
Well, that's one of those things, like, I very rarely read the books, and so this is one of the few times for a series that I have read them all, and I'm like, it's one of those ones that I'm like, I fundamentally do not understand how anyone could understand these stories or what they're saying if they haven't read the books, but people do, and so I'm like, how do they understand the districts? How do they understand these like parallels that they're making, and like the reference and like some of these sub characters and how they connect? I guess people maybe don't understand the complexities of some of the stuff, but it still works. But it's maybe just because I have actually, you know, read the books in this case.
Now you know how I feel every time I've read the book and watched the movie.
I know, yeah.
Because there's just so much more to the book portion of it, from a narrative perspective.
Yeah. Or
even an infrastructure perspective, you know.
Yes. Okay.
And I'm surprised you read those books. I don't think I've ever seen a book around you before, so. It's cool.
It was right. I mean, that was the books that were right at the right time for me.
Right time.
Harry Potter the movies were along the line of whenever I was growing up, but the books were a little bit before. Like people were reading them, but like they had started before. So like I remember when the books were launching, but they were already like later in the series. So I don't know if that makes any sense. But they weren't, their ages weren't paralleled with my age or who that was for. The movies were, but the books weren't. But Hunger Games was right at that right time. Middle school, going into high school, that sort of thing. So
my nieces that are your age asked me to borrow the Harry Potter books later so they could read them. So they were a little bit that always. Whenever you say stuff like that, it just reminds me of the gap between our ages and how the hell we could spend any time talking to each other about movies and stuff like this. It's pretty impressive on your part, Cade.
That was impressive on my part.
Yeah.
I mean, you could find all this very tedious and everything. So I appreciate that you don't.
I don't? Oh, yes, I don't. No game.
Well, we'll jump in now.
I want to go see The Whoosh. I tell my nieces when they were younger, I said, please, whatever you do, don't stop going to see animated movies because they're some of the best movies out there. But anyway, I haven't seen one in a couple of years myself.
You mean the new Disney one?
I would like to see that. I would also like to see the new Elemental movie. Never a fan of Trolls. Yeah. I did like the Elemental ones.
I don't know. I can't. A lot of people are having problems with this Wish movie of just like the quality that this is at, like in compared, like in the like music and like just a lot of the stuff I've just heard so much about. Like, what happened to Disney animation just in the past like few years? This is supposed to be their Disney 100 movie, and it's getting a lot of backlash of just like how sloppy it seems to be put together.
Oh, that's too bad. Mm-hmm. That's too bad because they had the girl from West Side Story to do the main character, and I love her. She is so talented. Anyway, I can't think of her name either, but we'll give Ava 30 minutes.
She's the one who did the Oscar song, right? That everyone mocked. Yeah.
I think
Angela Bassett did the thing. Yeah. That's what I know her from, which is probably not good for her.
Not good for her. Well, not or you. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so we're never going to jump into the actual show here. We're talking two Michael Fassbender movies, one from 2014, I want to say. Yes, 2014's Frank. Diane will give the plot of that movie, and then after we talk about that to death, we're going to then talk about the new release, which is The Killer. But first, Diane, you're going to explain the plot of Frank after this short little musical interlude.
Frank, the movie Frank, starring Michael Fassbender, just like Kate said, is about Frank Sidebottom, who was possibly the strangest pop star in history. And John Ronson, who played in his band, has co-written this film, along with another screenwriter, to remember Frank and his craziness, I guess. John himself played a guitarist in the band, and this is really John's story to tell of joining the band and touring with the band and getting to know Frank, a guy who wears a papier-mâché head and is the lead singer of a band that you cannot pronounce the name of. Is there anything else I should add to that, Kate? I can't think of anything else.
No, I mean, I would say that like it's loosely inspired by the real life events. I mean, the head's very similar and things, and the guy's name's Frank, but it's told in modern times. I mean, like this guy was big in like or not big, but he was a thing in the 80s or whatever. And so like, and this obviously takes place in the present day of 2014. So like they did do some updating or whatever. Like
what was updated? I don't see
South by Southwest.
South by Southwest has been around for a little while, hasn't it?
Not since the 80s.
I don't know. I'd have to look. I do love the fact that he did include lines in the movie, though, from his own experience.
Yes.
When he joined the band, they said, I played keyboards. He said, well, you're in. He said, I don't know any of your songs. And he said, wait a minute. The man said, and he said he heard muffled voices. He came back to the phone. Can you play C, F, and G? And he said, yes. He said, well, then you're in the band. So,
Yeah.
And he was scrunched in between Frank with his head on and the other band members in the back of the van. So it was pretty, I thought, he brought in some, it was definitely crazy Irish band stuff, right? I mean, they were from Ireland, right?
They were.
Irish
See, that's
band.
also one of those confusing things. They're in Ireland, and so yes, but Frank's from America, as we learn. So
Yes.
I guess he came to Ireland for. It's not really explained as to why, but yes, they were an Irish band. Maggie Gyllenhaal's in it. Domhnall Gleeson, he's the main character, and Michael Fassbender plays Frank, and he's in the head pretty much most of the movie, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's about him joining the band. They go, the keyboardist kind of loses it, so they bring him in for a show, and then they're like, hey, why don't you come over to this other gig that we're having? And it turns out that's really just them cooping up to write a whole album out in this rural house out in the hills of Ireland, and then he ends up like giving them his whole like savings that his grandfather gave him, his nest egg, I guess it's called, so that they can continue renting out this house and putting together this album of music. And so that's pretty much most of the film. Then it goes into later stuff and everything. It follows him sort of documenting the band online and sharing their story and them gaining some sort of.
That's where it was really updated, is the social media aspect, because he put stuff out. It did say in the real story of this sidebottom guy that their band actually had a following of about 700 people all around Liverpool and in England and all that kind of stuff. South by Southwest started in 1987.
Okay.
I knew it was around in the 90s because I went, but I wasn't sure exactly when it started.
Uh-huh.
And,
Okay.
I love the fact that they actually filmed that in Albuquerque, but anyway. So
I find it fascinating that it premiered at Sundance, and it's like, this is so heavily a South by Southwest.
Why on earth?
Why didn't it premiere at South by Southwest?
Yeah.
Why would Sundance approve a movie that shows how great South by Southwest is? I don't know.
I wish I had read all about it before I watched it. I think I would have enjoyed the movie more by having all these little references to it. Because just to watch the movie straight on, all I could think of was Jack in the Box. And all those great 90s commercials that Jack in the Box had. They even blew up a boardroom one time. I mean, it was, And of course, that was before your time, obviously, Cade. But Jack in the Box had this series. They used to do Super Bowl commercials, and they would be just these out of control, really edgy, comedic commercials about Jack in the Box. And then, if I hadn't been a little bit under the weather, I probably would have been craving Jack in the Box because they have those great tacos.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. That'll make you so sick if you eat too many of them, but they're so good.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I agree. I would be sponsored by Jack in the Box in a heartbeat if we could. Yeah. I'd do ad reads for Jack in the Box and their tacos.
All of it. I used to date this guy that he would go to Jack in the Box, and of course he'd get a hamburger, but he'd also get the tacos and all of the sides and all the different things that they make there. That's just nothing but deep fried whatever. And he'd put them on a cookie sheet, and then he would salt and pepper the shit out of everything, and pour him a bowl of like ketchup and put it in the middle, and that would be dinner. I was like, that's all I could think of while watching this movie. Which did not help my stomach issues at all. That cookie sheet full of Jack in the Box stuff.
Well, they now do like these munchie boxes where they put a bunch of things in it, and mix it all together like that. So
for all I know, he went to work for him and said, "This is how you just because this is what people are doing when they come here and they buy a bunch of stuff, and That's what they would do. Of course, that was back when my young skinny days, but I could see doing that now. And when I start feeling better, I'm going to go to Jack in the Box, all because of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know which came first, Jack in the Box Head or Frank Sidebottom.
Good question.
Yeah. I bet it was Frank Sidebottom.
Yeah. I mean, so what did you think of this movie, Diane?
You know, it was supposed to be a comedy, but it really was more of a, oh my gosh, a really, really, really sad movie about mental illness.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there was a mentally healthy person in the group other than the redheaded guy. I forgot his name.
Domhnall Gleeson.
Yeah. Except for he took advantage of their mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and I'm sure at the end he was supposed to be feeling guilty about that. Mm-hmm. But he still left them, you know, to fend for themselves, knowing that they were mentally not healthy enough to do that. So no redeeming people in this movie necessarily.
Yeah, I think
our story.
His Frank's parents, they kind of come off as, you know, very well-meaning and mm-hmm. everything, you know, that's whenever that sort of thing happens. Outside of that, I don't know. I mean, he obviously wasn't mentally well, but what's that actor's name? We're doing really awful here.
I know. They don't realize our brains have been under a fever for the last 24 hours.
Both Diane and I were both sick this weekend. So, okay. The guy, Scooter McNairy. Is that his name?
I know, Scooter McNairy. That's right. I didn't even recognize him in this movie.
His character was very fascinating, and tragic, and
very tragic. Yeah, sort of heartbreaking.
That was it was. I thought that they did that character very well. His limited screen presence and everything. Mm-hmm. I thought that they really told that story very, very, very well, and I don't know. I don't have more than that. I don't have a lot to say. I thought the movie was fine. I thought that even the bad songs in this movie were better than everything in Annette. So that was my thoughts on this.
Okay, we didn't have to go far for that, did we?
No. just wanted that to be on the record that this movie didn't have, I would say, really any good songs, but they were all better than Annette. Than every second was an Annette. Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm never going to listen to any of these songs, but it cleared that bar.
There was kind of a tie-in to the second movie that we're going to talk about mm-hmm. with the music.
Yes.
Because I don't know. A lot of times when I'm watching a film that we're going to talk about, mm-hmm. I put on the closed captioning. Mm-hmm. Just, I don't want to miss any of the words, you know, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I noticed that
for both these films.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of the lyrics of the Smiths were very similar to the lyrics of some of the Frank songs, and I thought,
wow, Morrissey's not going to like what you're saying there, Diane.
Well, it's like they walked down the street and just started writing what they saw. You know, I just thought that was kind of interesting that there were very similar lines.
They're both. I mean, the idea that they are kind of this UK new wave sort of thing. I mean, that is very, like, they even said, like, musically they're kind of pulling from that sort of underground new wave sort of thing from Frank, which is generous. I mean, I love that sort of thing. I love the Smiths. Smiths not my favorite band, but I obviously
but you could see them singing "Hey Lady in the Blue Coat with the Red Bag." You can absolutely see.
What's your secret? Do you know the lady with the red coat and what's in her bag? There's a girl. My girlfriend's in a coma. You know, that sort of.
Yeah. Scoot McNairy.
Yeah.
Scoot McNairy. He was in *Halt and Catch Fire*. Did you ever see that series?
I never watched that.
Oh my gosh, so good! But I would love it just because of the time. Mm-hmm. You know, it was in Dallas. It was, you know, when they were first coming up with, you know, the laptop and the whole competition, you know, between mm-hmm. people, and Lee Pace was amazing in that series. Mm-hmm. But Scoot McNairy was too.
Is that the show that they retooled after the first season? Like the second season does like it completely switches. That's all I remember from like they switch protagonists or something in the second season.
Well, I don't know that they switched as much as they gave probably Lee Pace's character more of an arc
Okay.
than he was supposed to have. He was probably supposed to only be there for one season, but he stayed on because I could see that, but I don't think he switched completely.
There was
I could be wrong.
I just remembered that was one of those things that it wasn't doing so well, so they retooled it in the second season. Is what I that's what I remember people talking about, but I could get confused with something else. But yeah, no. But no, this I don't have a lot. I don't have a lot about this movie. I found it. My only note is about the songs being better than Annette. I was looking to see if I had any other notes. That is the only note I have.
That doesn't. It kind of makes sense.
I didn't. It wasn't boring, which I think is like a huge plus anymore, especially since we were recovering and we were sick. Like I didn't find the movie like it didn't like dip in quality or anything. It wasn't hard to watch. I think there's a lot of movies we watched that are like kind of nails on the chalkboard or like it had to be dragged along to watch it. I watched it. And it didn't. And it was had a nice pacing to it. It wasn't a great film, but I didn't hate it. So, and it was an easy watch. So
an easy watch. See, and I didn't find it to be an easy watch at all. It's supposed to be a comedy drama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a musical comedy, and to me. It was just every character, like I said, has mental health issues in it.
Mm-hmm.
Even the French guy, who actually speaks English, by the end, you realize, he spoke English the whole time. Mm-hmm. But they all have mental health issues, and they just felt so exploited by the end of it. And I just went, that just left a bad taste in my mouth. Bad taste over what was already there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of had a problem with it by the end. Watching it wasn't so bad, but by the end of it, I was like, that was kind of a sucky way to treat these people. Maybe it is based on a real story, but
initially, I don't think he understood what these were. They had these problems. Like I think.
I agree. The character, I don't think he really understood. He probably thought. Or at least the impression you're left with is he thought, these people are just rockers.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to be in this world, and this is what I've always imagined it to be.
Yes, and so like that's sort of
hotel rooms.
His slow realization is that they're all mentally ill, and like that's he thinks that these are just people living this sort of bohemian lifestyle, and that like he wishes that he could be like free like them and like just give up these sort of. Live this carefree lifestyle and just make art and be loose about it, and that was his routine problem is he his art wasn't good. Like it comes with this weird sort of theme by the end of it that I don't know is kind of a little strange, that it's like that it was almost this mental illness that was what made them like great artists. It's the way that I took it, but I don't know. I mean, but the family sort of said that no, that it actually held him back. So like, I mean, it had like some interesting sort of things where like they grappled with all of these different things. Like you, because like here's a protagonist who's thinking he's trying to figure out what is this X factor that makes Frank as good as he is musically. He's trying to understand what is it that this guy has that I don't have. What is that? How can I attain that? And it drives him sort of crazy, trying to be like, maybe it's got to be some sort of tragedy. It's got to be some sort of thing that's happened to him that that causes him this great pain that I never had, and I think that is a common thing with creatives and of like that this idea that like people you have to almost write from this pained experience or something, and by the end of it you assume that it's making the suggestion that yes, it's because he's mentally ill, but his parents then make the saying that no, that he was always sort of creative, and in fact this is what's held him back in some sort of ways. I don't know, I mean, there's fascinating.
He's always been mentally ill, but it wasn't from any lived pained experience.
Yes,
because the lead character says, his family's just like mine.
Yeah. So all that's very fascinating. Like, it has fascinating themes at the core of it.
But if you really want to watch, a good movie, a behind-the-scenes rock band movie, then go see Almost Famous. Or watch it again if you haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's fun. More fun, I guess.
Well,
it has better music.
You're supposed to be watching a comedy. You don't have many suicides in a comedy. Did you get that Scoot's character says that he's rented this place out in the country to do this, record, yada, yada, yada. And then the people come home and go, "What are you doing in our vacation home?" Almost as if, wait a minute, we come here once a year. This is our place, and you're squatting. Yeah. So I got the impression they never rented anything. He found a place that was vacant.
I got the impression, and this could just been how I read it, that the guy they were renting it from, whenever they said that they weren't paying, he then rented it out to these people to spend like their vacation there. Like, he then rented it out to just some random people to come there and have vacation there. That's the way that I understood. So when they showed up, they're like, wait, which would make a lot more. I like
my story better.
I do, yeah.
I like my story better. Well, being squatters is more fun.
Didn't Domhnall have I don't even know what his character's name in this movie. John. John. Didn't he have the best spot in the entire compound? Like, it was separated from everybody, and yeah, that's I don't know. I just thought that he had the best spot.
Of course, we never really saw the accommodations other than that. He was separated, so he could have been in a shack. Yeah. I don't know.
He was separated from everybody.
Seem like he was in a guest house or something.
Yeah, that seemed to have its own sort of things going on there. I liked the Frank character. I thought we got to learn about him a lot. I mean, I thought each character worked. I think, yes, it had some problems with Maggie Gyllenhaal's character was odd, the way that was written and everything, and that relationship was, I don't know, interesting. I don't know.
Fingernails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, and it's like she gave 110% to the role, but it was just the way it was written. But I don't know if there was any, but other than that, it's fine. I don't know.
I was going to see what Rotten Tomatoes is really high on this thing, 92, but the users just gave it a 75, 72% of Google users, and then 6.9 on IMDb. So I don't know.
I guess the highest praise that I can give it is, like, I can't imagine hating it, but I can imagine not liking it. I don't think that you can viscerally hate the movie. I think it has too much interesting sort of things, but it just might not come together as how you would want it to.
Oh, look! People who watched this movie also watched A Ghost Story.
Well, because it's a main character who has their head covered for most of the movie.
I wasn't going to say this, but Michael Fassbender was only in like 2-3 scenes. So he probably wasn't in the whole movie.
He was definitely in the, I mean, they said that he was comfortable in the, and you could tell that it was Michael Fassbender. Through most of that, I think you very much can.
Okay. Okay. I'm just going to let you believe that. But anyway,
well, I'll tell you, if you want to know a fun thing, because everyone's talking about, David Fincher again, because this is our next movie. But how he's so obsessive about takes, and how he will endlessly make these people do these takes over and over again. There's this one scene that everyone was talking about of Zodiac, and it was an insert shot of Jake Gyllenhaal, the other Gyllenhaal, taking a book and throwing it in the seat next to him. It was a sketchbook, and throwing it in the seat next to him in a car, and it was just an insert shot of the book falling onto the seat next to him, and did it like 40 times, and it's literally Jake Gyllenhaal doing this, and he's not even in the shot. He's just throwing the book down, and they're just parked there, and they do it 40 times in a row, and it's just him until they get it right. He's like, no, and then like David Fincher's coming over there and kind of giving him instructions on how to throw it, and he just keeps throwing it down, and it's just humorous, and people are like, why did Jake Gyllenhaal have to? Couldn't they brought someone else in to throw the book in? Throw the book down? Nope. And also, these insert shots are not... A lot of times directors don't shoot insert shots, and they don't shoot it in the setting that they have to, right, because it's not all that necessary. Yeah. So the fact that David Fincher is there directing an insert shot in the exact place that it was shot at, I mean that's just how meticulous of a director he is, and I think it's great. I mean, it's not me criticizing it, and he gets upset whenever people say that he takes too many takes, and because he'll say that there's some things that don't take that many takes that should be more complicated things. He just does it until it's right. So that's his perspective on the matter. But yeah, I just find it humorous that Jake Gyllenhaal had to keep doing that over and over again. Wondering, like, can we not get my double in here to do this instead?
Really?
So that's just me saying that sometimes actors are in spaces whenever you would think that a double would be fine. But a lot of...
Oh, he directed Gone Girl. I didn't realize that. I don't know why I didn't know that.
I have seen all of David Fincher's movies except for 3. And the 3 I haven't seen Alien 3, which that would break my heart. I don't think I'm ever going to see Alien 3.
Me neither.
So maybe I don't know. It's supposedly bad, and the first 2 Alien movies are great, and David Fincher did the third one, and I just don't want my heart to be broken. And then I've never seen Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. It was not my. It doesn't seem like my vibe. I will eventually watch that at some point, but I've never seen that one. And then I have never watched his one before this, Mank, the one with Gary Oldman. And I just because I wanted to see that in the big screen, it was obviously a Netflix movie. I just never got around to watching it. But I need to watch that because those are one of my favorite actors and my favorite director. So that I do need to watch Mank at some point. But those are the only 3.
I haven't seen that. I have seen The Girl in the Dragon Tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And, I will tell you that the book was 1,000 times better than the movie. Mm-hmm. Mainly because it's such a psychological thriller that you don't really get the genesis of where these characters' pain is coming from or why they are like they are. Mm-hmm. And the writer is Swedish. Mm-hmm. And the books were originally written in Swedish, so they're like they're not Americanized in any way, shape, or form. And to take the movie and try to keep it in Sweden but Americanize it a little bit kind of hurt it. I think it hurt it.
Yeah.
I could be wrong because the culture is so different, and everything about it is so different. And then the book is like that thick, maybe. Yeah. I don't know how many pages it is. So there was a lot that they couldn't include. That was really informative as to why she did what she did and how she reacted to things the way she did. And the same thing with the James Bond guy. He's in it.
Daniel Craig.
Yes. And his character in the movie comes off as a little bit one-dimensional to me. Compared to what it was in the book. This is another one that, didn't translate as well for me.
Yeah.
Gone Girl, I think you could watch. I read the book on it too, and Gone Girl is the movie is good.
Mm-hmm.
The book was good. I mean, it was tough to compare the two of them because once you've read the book, you know the end.
Yeah.
And once you know the end, it changes how you review the movie. The two people I went to see the movie with both loved the movie. So, yeah. So it must have
Gone Girl, I really like.
They're well cast. Even though I do not care for Ben Affleck, I thought this was a really good role for him. And he played the character in the book about exactly like you would expect.
Well, and I think a lot of people seemingly don't understand sort of David Fincher's humor about things like the fact that like Ben Affleck's like in a comedy in Gone Girl. Like his stuff is comedic, and like that people people watch it and don't sort of get the sort of like that's his part is comedic throughout whenever she's out of the picture and all that. And I don't know. I often tell people that and they're like, what? That girl's very serious and very, I'm like, no, it's his parts. He's in like, that's sort of is the whole point is that he's almost in this comedy and like she is in this other type of movie. I think it's really brilliant and everything. But yeah, that's routinely, I mean, like he views Fight Club as a comedy and I mean, Fight Club's his masterpiece. I mean, I don't think anything will ever touch that.
I think it's a comedy.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole point of it. I mean, but yeah, I don't know. So I mean, a lot of his stuff has a lot more humor and
he might have done more with Frank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think if we're going to talk about David Fincher, we might as well move on.
We probably should. Frank, would you recommend it or not, Diane?
No.
Too
many other things to watch out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think you would know that it's not really funny. I mean, there are funny moments. It's more of
a dark comedy.
Yeah.
It's
a character-based drama with some music. And there is some humor, but some of the stuff doesn't land. It's not a hard watch, but it is it's got some complexities to it, but it's also, I don't know. I would at the end of the day, I guess, recommend it, but it's a very, very light recommendation. And most people, I don't think are going to love it. So it's a very light, very light recommendation.
If you want to watch a dark comedy, watch Seven Psychopaths. That's a good dark comedy. My personal opinion.
I mean, I don't think that they're mocking the darkness. So it's like, that's the other thing about it. Like, it's not a dark comedy in the sense that it's mocking the darkness. Or having fun with the darkness. The darkness.
They weren't having fun with it. They were mocking it, but not having fun.
I think the darkness was told very compassionately or whatever in this movie. But whatever. I watched her down. Our next movie I want to talk about more, and that is The Killer, and it's on Netflix currently, and it's David Fincher's new movie, and it stars Michael Fassbender. So we're going to hop into that now after this short little intermission, and I will give the plot of that.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time. All these delicious treats are waiting for you at the refreshment stand. Delicious fresh popcorn, ice-cold cola, and candy you know and love. They're all ready for you now, so you won't have to miss any of the feature. Come and get them.
And now, on with the show.
Okay, and now I'm going to give the plot of the movie The Killer. It is from this year. It is currently on Netflix. It was directed by David Fincher, and it's written by Andrew Kevin Walker, who is David Fincher's sort of punch-up person. He wrote Seven, and he wrote a few other movies later on. But he's a script doctor for The Game and Fight Club, and done a few other things for him. So he's very often worked with David Fincher. So this movie stars Michael Fassbender as the unnamed killer. It's told in, I want to say 5 acts. and maybe more, but I think it's 5 acts, and the idea is that each one's in its different location, and it's around a person. I don't know if that will have to go into a little bit spoilers to understand this a little bit, but the first part, he's in Paris. He is tasked with doing a hit. It goes wrong, and the movie is sort of the consequences of that. I don't know how much you want to go into spoilers here, Diane.
I don't know. I don't know that we need to go into spoilers. So here's what I wanted to know, though. They shoot all the scenes,
yeah, and
then write the narrative after the fact. You know, it almost could have been done that way. You know, that's one of the questions that I had. And then the second question I had was, if you were a highly paid assassin, you would have never hit the call girl. He would have waited. He waited for days to take one shot. Yeah. He would have never hit her to begin with. But then there would be no premise for the movie. Yes. So they could have created a better premise for the movie.
I think that's the point, is that here's a guy who's been correct his entire life, and that here's the one time that he makes the wrong split-second decision, it has this dire consequences. Like, that's the whole point. He's a guy who does this procedure. He does everything by these steps and everything. And here's the one time that he didn't follow through with his exact rules, and everything just comes crumbling apart because of the one bad call that he made. I think that's the whole sort of point of the film.
I get that that's supposed to be the premise, but they could have used a better, something better to go wrong than that. You know what I mean? Agree. Yeah, because the lead up to that is just not. I mean, if it had showed him tired and ready to get the hell out of there, or whatever, but he didn't strike me as the kind of character that would ever be that way. So the premise to start off the movie, to me, just felt a little, I don't know.
Well, do you think that there would be this much of a consequence? They could have come up with
a better idea.
I mean, would there be this much of a consequence just because this lady got killed? And not the guy? Yeah.
No, I think that the consequence was that he didn't hit the right person, right?
Yeah.
But you could have done the premise better of that. I mean, I think that the end result would be the same, but you could have done something a little bit better than just the call girl standing in the window in the way.
But I do think that the point was that it was simplistic and it's like by the time you get to the end of the movie. Yeah, but this
guy is like 20 years of being so fastidious about doing perfectly. He wouldn't have made that mistake. He would have made a different one, maybe, but not that one. See what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's the point. that it does seem somewhat like a stupid mistake, that is someone who's done this, hundreds and hundreds. I mean, he talks about it, how much he has done this, and you get to the point, this whole lead up of all the steps that he does and all that, and then in the split decision he makes an error.
Well, it really wasn't even a split decision. She was standing in front of the window for minutes and minutes. She had time to close the curtains. She was there. I mean, if I could see if she just walked by right as he pulled the trigger, but she didn't. She was standing there for a while. So that's why that kind of rang not quite. Well,
there was the whole thing of he didn't have the shot until in that moment, and then she moved, and in that split, and that was the one opportunity he actually had the shot of him, was in that second, because she was about to close the curtain. And he was already standing when those wall was out of the way, and he was just then in the open, and then he had to wait till his heartbeat went down so that it wouldn't affect the exact moment of when he would something about this trigger.
But the curtain she was closing, she had already closed one side, and it was a sheer, so it wasn't like she was closing the drapes. Right, she was closing the sheer. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's just, the whole, I don't know. That, to me, could have been done a little bit better. Anyway, from there on, we go into this, whole, everything is triggered based upon that, And what did he call the toothpick? Like Q-tip? Is that what he called her? Q-tip.
Very. That's like fourth act of the movie, but yeah.
I know. I was surprised she didn't show up until then. You know,
Yeah,
I kept thinking, oh, well, she's going to be in the next scene.
Mhm.
She's going to be in the next. Oh, she's going to be in the next, and she wasn't toward the end.
Yeah, I mean,
But
they
it had to
say
go
that
chronological.
she was like, to me, the biggest thing that I left this movie is like, there was two things that I left this movie with. One, and they were both like filmmaking things. One, anyone, like any A-list actor would appear in a David Fincher movie. They would 100% be like
40 takes of throwing a book.
Yeah, they would do it. They would all in a heartbeat be like, David Fincher's making a movie, clear my schedule. I will take a pay cut if there's for some reason that Netflix isn't giving us a bunch of money. Like, so it's weird that this movie is built on these sequences of bring in a person and to just be in this acting scene with Michael Fassbender, and they aren't filled with just character. I mean, he uses famous people all the time in his movies playing these characters, and it had to be a choice to not use A-list or even B-list. I mean, like there were only two famous people in this movie, and that was it was a choice that it was
That's
a little odd.
Everybody dies. A-list actors don't like to die in movies.
I don't think so that was a choice to me, that I guess the idea was that he didn't want it to seem flashy. I don't know. I'm trying to understand why that would be the case, why he would not want.
I don't think you could get into his head on that particular one. I do think that the people in this movie that are around these assassins are behind the scenes. They're in the shadows. So you wouldn't necessarily have a famous person. It would take something away from the character, I would think. You know, the professor or the lawyer that they call him, the guy who's, you know,
the lawyer
scheduling, the whole whatever, you know, they wouldn't want a famous person in that role, because it would kind of take away from the fact this is the guy who lives in the shadows in that sense.
I agree.
Right?
I think that's the
everyday
the
guy.
Point. Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy who played the billionaire, Arliss Howard, I guess is his name. He's
Claiborne.
Yeah, kind of a innate, one of the many nameless billionaires out there who pull the strings on things. They have no idea the consequences of what they've done and don't care.
Yes, and I think that was the idea, is to sort of personify these assassins, because like the later one that you get is the other assassin. And so I that's when I really started thinking about like why would this be these sort of unnamed. I mean, the other idea is like here's these shadowy people, or this idea of the few versus the many, and this idea like that like, I mean, I do think that it had to be intentional, because he could fill it up with anybody, and so it had to be an intentional choice to not make it to choose it that way. I think it was intentional in the sense that these people are just everyday people, and they're living in the shadows. Anyway, I always like psychological thrillers that dot all their I's and cross all their T's, and you know, you have a closed loop. I always like those kind of movies. Those are I'm drawn to those type of movies. I'm drawn to the loner kind of character that he plays, you know, that really and truly isn't a loner, but gives, you know, but you start off thinking that he is. Does that make sense? I always like assassins. Love assassins. Yeah, I liked how he said, I based my look off of a German tourist that I saw at one point. I mean, I loved all the little inner dialogue things that they have, and like this idea like he's been around the world and does all these different things, and this like observation of how Paris wakes up slower than anywhere. I mean, like all these different things. I of course wrote down just one of the most hilarious lines I've ever heard. New Orleans, 1,000 restaurants, one menu is. I did too. I wrote that one down too, because I thought this is the truest thing I've ever heard of New Orleans. It is so true. It really is. Yeah. And I mean, there's just a few little interesting things. I know, my other favorite line is the Sunshine State. Where else could you find so many like-minded individuals outside a penitentiary? Yeah. Love that line. Yes.
There should be a 30-day waiting period for creatine. I mean,
yeah,
this is a movie with great lines in it all the way around. The references to current cultural things going on, like Dateline. You won't see this on Dateline.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I think the products, I mean, that kind of brings up this idea that like this movie's filled with these products and things in this movie, like that it could not
references.
Culture references, but I mean just like logos in a way that I just loved, that like it was obviously not product placement, because here you have an assassin that's using these things that he should not be using. Like Amazon did not buy a product placement to be like, you can use our services to buy fobs to duplicate keys and break into places. But they show that, and they even show like Amazon hubs. Like it's just bizarre. The fact that he's using a WeWork front. Like, I mean, like free WeWork would not be okay with them suggesting that they're almost like people use them as a back end for these assassinations. There's a lot of them in this movie. There's FedEx. There's just routinely a lot of these things that are just exists in the world. He talks about going to McDonald's, but it's McDonald's in Paris, which already has like this, interesting cultural, history. But there's a lot of that throughout the movie, and I find that incredibly fascinating. And I think that's part of David Fincher's wit that he has about like, I mean, there was like the Starbucks cups in Fight Club. I mean, there's Starbucks in this as well. Like this idea that he has about consumerism and that how it's just everywhere, and how it's used in this is very funny and in a way that probably only David Fincher could get away with. Because
I love that he brought the line about, after, the direct debits run out, the storage wars guys, I can't wait for them to open up the storage.
He says there's over 500,000 storage lockers in facilities in the United States, and I own lockers in 6 of them. And he's like, I can't. Oh, as soon as the automatic payments dry up, I can't wait for the episode of Storage Wars where they open up.
I know. It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't get better than that. And he's so cool about, when he leaves the first assassination, about how he goes through the process of eliminating the helmet. I mean, every step of the way. And keeping in mind that there are cameras everywhere, right? So yeah, that was it. Like, and the places that he drives by and tosses the helmet, these are like tourist places. It was pretty amazing.
Yes, and so there's this idea that's all sort of so thought out. Like this idea, like that's where I think like everything he has is so thought out, and it's about procedure and everything. So. That brings me to my other point of this, is this seems odd in a David Fincher movie to be... This movie's relatively themeless, which is strange for a David Fincher movie. Like, that's one of those things that, like, I was just kind of waiting for this movie to have some sort of greater point that it was making about anything or whatever. It never seemed to ever have, and that's odd to me from his perspective, and then just from films and in general. And so that kind of got me looking into different things about like of things, and I found this interview with the cinematographer of the piece, and it was the Radio Times, and when he was first sent the script, he was a little unsure about what it meant. This is a quote. He said, "To be honest with you, I'm a bit confused about what."
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought that was off.
So he said, you didn't have to like turn away whenever I start reading something.
But no, I was looking for that. I wanted to pull that up. Yeah, sorry.
So he said, to be honest with you, I was a bit confused about what the film was about initially. I needed some clarification from Fincher. Is this about sociopathy? Is it meant to be be really exciting? Are we? And he said, don't look at it. Don't look for the theme. This is what David Fincher told him. Don't look for the theme. The film is about process, about process and procedure. It's precise when the character is precise, and it's messy when it's distraught, and that really intrigued me. That's what the cinematographer said. I think that it was sort of all the conversations we had, for the most part, on the film were about structure of the scenes as it pertains to photography of them and where to put the camera and how to use the camera and all, and the point of view. And so it's about this procedure, and that to me was very interesting. Like, this is almost like it's about process, it's about procedure. And so there's not really a whole lot of themes to sort of latch onto. And so that becomes interesting. Like, it's an interesting, to me, it's a challenging film as someone who loves Fincher and loves his sort of wit and loves the sort of how he is able to take a story and tell thematically from his, he doesn't write things. He takes other people's scripts and develops them and everything. And so to find something that really wasn't really saying a whole lot thematically, but instead tells a story about process and procedure is interesting. And it is challenging in a way that I wasn't expecting. So yeah, I don't know. I just found that interesting. I don't know, and it made me sort of think about it in a different way. I would say
that's what I responded to. I think the most was the process involved. I'm a list person. I believe in checklists. I believe in project plans, all those things, and he lived and died by them. That was, and to have a character that was so kind of in every single move that he made, everything he touched, I really responded to, because I really like that part of it. In fact, I kind of like the fact that was the movie for a change. What I mean? The assassin movies are all about the targets and the bad guys and, all that kind of stuff. What's the one with, here we go again. Brad Pitt's wife, ex-wife. Oh. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. No.
Wanted?
Yes. It was all about, who the bad guys were, who are the good guys, that kind of thing. And I'm kind of glad this didn't have that. It was just about, this is what this guy does for a living, and this is what it takes to do this. Now, the one thing, and this gets to, I think, perfect casting with Fassbender, is that he is so precise, I guess, of an actor. He's kind of perfect for this part. He's almost an android, right? So he's kind of perfectly cast in this part of someone who really and truly does a give about what he's doing in that moment. But at the end, you get to see that he really does care.
Yes.
But at the same time, because of his job, I don't even want to use the word cold-hearted as much as precise. And this is where I think Michael Fassbender, I think he does a great job in this movie because of it. I think he's perfect for this role.
Yeah, no, I mean, he did an excellent job. And I really liked the different locales that it went to. I mean, like, it was borrowing, of course, from like it was subversive in the way that, like, you start out in Paris, and this idea of this really high class sort of this thing, and like the idea that you think you're going to get like this almost James Bond style thing, globetrotting, trying to find these different underground different things, and then
Born Identity kind of deal. It's going to do some globetrotting here.
Yes, and so you start in Paris, then he goes back to his hideout in the Dominican Republic, then that hits close to home, and then everyone past that, it routinely gets more and more like stranger for this type of movie. So that to me was very fascinating, because then he goes to Florida, and it's this and it's not class of the slightest, and then he goes
like
to
the Everglades. What is it? The
Everglades.
Yeah, it's like the Everglades.
And it's just this house that's just the most Of
course, the very first thing, one of the things I wrote down as the best subtitle in the entire movie was Diva snoring. Because I would have really been upset if he'd killed the dog.
Yes.
Yeah, but he didn't kill the dog.
No.
Although the dog,
Dog nearly got him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
all the aliases were 70s and 80s sitcom guys.
all the
Did
what?
you notice that? All the aliases we had were all 70s and 80s sitcom guys.
Yes.
Archie Bunker and, Howard
Yes.
Cunningham, Sam Malone. Yeah.
That was
I
good.
loved it.
And yeah, I mean all the music in this, I mean it's the Smiths are in this quite a bit. A lot of they use their whole discography.
I'm pretty sure the Smiths are now the music of assassins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's really fun because I mean, like their sound is so sort of quirky and sardonic and like sarcastic. I mean, it's so specific into sort of it makes this have this interesting sort of tone about it that and I also liked how he cut it. It was interesting, like how a different person would cut that song or songs to the thing. Is he's not doing it to a beat. He's not doing it to like even the most interesting parts of the song. Like it's just the background noise, and so it will switch in and out, and it's never. It's not like glossy. I mean, it's interesting. It's the way that the music's used is very interesting, and then of course the scores by Trent Reznor and Atticus, whatever that guy's name is. The guy who does all the scores with Trent Reznor, which is it's an amazing score. I mean, they're one of the best modern composers duo, and no, I mean, I was surprised by this movie. I will say that it was very surprising. It's not my favorite David Fincher movie, but of course it wouldn't be. If something was better than Fight Club in my books, then I would never watch another movie ever again. If David Fincher did that, if David Fincher somehow pulled out something better than Fight Club, it would be like, well, that's the end of cinema in my books, because we should just all pack up now. Because I mean, that'd be a very high bar to clear. But
did you ever see Assassin's Creed?
No.
Michael Fassbender was in it too.
He was.
I think maybe this movie was to redeem himself after Assassin's Creed. It's possible.
Yeah. It's possible.
This one, though, I think had just had so many good comedic references. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that Tilda was called the Q-tip lady. She looks like a Q-tip. I wonder if they told her about that line before. When you cast her, I'm going to call you a Q-tip. Is that okay? I bet she got a kick out of it.
To me, I mean, like, if we're comparing all these parts, Tilda's is the best section of the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think seeing the two of them across from each other, so good. Just so good.
This redeems the fact that he was supposed to be the vampire alongside her and only lovers left alive. And I just wish now we got that version where instead of Tom Hiddleston, it was Michael Fassbender.
No, I disagree. Tom Hiddleston will always be the vampire in that. Yeah. No.
Well, he was the one originally cast, and then he had to pull out last minute. So I would have liked to have seen that more. But that's just my opinion. But no, I think that scene is great. And all that. And like, I think that's the closest we come to any sort of themes in the movie is from that sort of sequence. And what it, and I think that it just is great. I mean, she's just perfect in everything. Tilda Swinton. And this is just one of these roles that again, she just brings a whole lot to the movie. And she's very fascinating. That character is very fascinating. And what we just get from it. And then second most interesting part was the lawyer in New Orleans. This idea in his secretary. That all was incredibly interesting and heartbreaking and and everything. I mean, I just found that all to be very, I mean, and then just all what Michael Fassbender went through with the recycling bit. I mean, all that was just all very fascinating to me, and how that was all done. So, but no, I think I like the movie.
A 101 and how to get around security and cameras and everything else. Like a billionaire said, I spent all this money for this protection, and here you are.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that Michael Fassbender left him alive was so that he would know that.
Mm-hmm.
I can be back anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you should think about what you do in the future.
Yeah. Well, and I find that fascinating of this idea that he didn't, like, it wasn't a revenge thing for him. Like, I suppose, if we're taking what he's saying to be the truth and everything, this idea that, like, he's saying that I only did it because I was told that there was the measured response to the way that you did that. Like, that to me is very...
You should tie up loose ends.
Yes. And
that you shouldn't leave a trail.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're going to say those words and you're part of the trail,
mm-hmm.
why would you? Yeah.
But that was, so, that's...
In reality, he did.
Mm-hmm.
He did eliminate the trail.
And so that's right? Very, like, in such a clinical sort of, like, it's in a movie that's what the whole point, the whole movie is about, these sort of procedures and measured response and all these different things. Like, and it just, for it to end with this conversation that's just like, hey, I was just following what I was told was the proper procedure, is just, that's such a, like, it's not what you expect this movie to be. It's not like, and I think that's what's so fascinating about this is, like, it's a movie about that. It's a movie about these sort of, how we're beholden to these sort of procedures that we make and everything, and like, and how, if
even
just,
though they're life and death.
Yes.
But we're still beholden to the procedure.
Mm-hmm. And like, yes, and here's a guy who
like
just
I said,
made
I responded
to this. And it's like, and it's, here's people like, and it's about, like about this life and death, and this, here's these hits and all these things.
But
and
this is how our process works.
Yeah.
You will not be, you'll be amazed how many times I sit in meetings over the course of my career and heard those very words and went, yeah, but it hurts people. So why would we do it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not life and death, but it might mean the difference between making a house payment or buying groceries.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's But like I said, I responded to that. I'm so glad somebody finally made a movie about it.
Yeah. Well, and Fincher's probably the right person to do it because of just how precise of a director he is. I don't know if there's someone else who could really make that movie, make it feel that right, because of just how, I think that's probably why he responded to even this script of all and everything too. It's just like, this is a very precise movie. It's a movie about precision, and it's directed so precisely.
And I think, and even with the casting of Fassbender, I think is part of that precision. Mm-hmm. And Tilda, to me, she's like the female version of Fassbender. They could both be androids. Mm-hmm.
And I agree. And like that, and it's, just the use of like, then when he does this handheld some different time. And like the idea that like it's all based on sort of Michael Fassbender of how he feels in this scene. Like it is all so intentional and so mesmerizing. Like, you couldn't, like, Fincher, he's just so, we've never talked about Fincher, so I haven't talked about him on the show, but if you talked about me with films in real life, I'm just in awe of this man's direction of things. And like, this is another one of just like, I could not look away from the screen. It is that mesmerizing of a experience that he does with storytelling. And this isn't even his best thing. I don't even know where I'd rank it and everything. I haven't sat with it, but I'll tell you, even just, I watched that last night and I've continued to set with it. It continues to set with me a lot more than like, as I think about it more and kind of think about the sort of point that he's making and everything. And it's a very fascinating film. It's a very fascinating film.
I agree.
Great.
I don't know what else to say.
Would you recommend this movie? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Yes, I would recommend this movie. There's a lot of movies that Netflix produces that I would recommend. They have high entertainment values, but then in many cases, it's beautiful art.
Mm-hmm. And I think it shows the sort of difference between Fincher and some of his other directors that like he's willing to make this streaming deal and it'd be like, I don't care if it's not in theaters or whatever. People are going to watch it. He shoots digitally. Like he's very much embraced the digital trend. In fact, he detests that he had to make things with film before. Because I mean, he talks about how things in Seven and things in like the game and stuff that he had to do with film, because he hands it over to a cinematographer, they shoot it, and then he sees back the dailies, and he's like, this isn't exactly how I had in mind. Now he gets the monitor, he sees exactly what they're doing, and he gets to be much more precise with everything. And so he loves digital, and the way he uses he does CGI in this, and it's in a way that's like you wouldn't necessarily, like, obviously the use of the planes were very much CGI and all that, and the way that they kind of loomed over things, and oftentimes these blood effects and he's from sort of digital environment, so he knows sort of how like special effects works and stuff like that. That's a long thing, but I think that he's embraced the digital more than a lot of other directors have, and he uses that to great effect and everything. And so he's not like this sort of Luddite when it comes to like, yeah, I'll make a deal with the streaming service. They're going to fund my project, then I'll do it, and more people are going to see it, and it's going to be pushed out. Like, I mean, everyone has a Netflix account, so yeah, I'll put it out and do all that. So I have to give him credit for that. Yes, and I have to give Netflix credit for it as well. So yeah, I watch this movie now. I think it's a great movie. I think it's a movie that works on several different levels. I think it's just an enjoyable movie to watch. I think he works on this level where like things can just be enjoyable, and they're just fun, or they're enjoyable movies. They're dark and interesting and everything, but if there's more that you want to like look into it and think about, then he has a lot there too. So highly recommend it. That's the killer.
That's the killer.
Now we're going to go into preview time. We're going to preview next week's coming attractions, and boy, are they interesting.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
Well, next week here on Double Feature Movie Club, we have a little double feature that we're calling Apocalyptic Visions. Ooh, doesn't that sound interesting?
Oh, boy.
It will be Diane and I, because I don't want to put anyone else through these two movies.
We like our friends, and we want to keep them.
Yes. So these are going to be these might be chores to watch, but, at the end of the day, Diane and I are going to be very happy that we have seen this, and we're going to be so educated, and we're going to tell people, how great we are and how great our podcast is for
right, and I'll let you know if I fall asleep during them or not.
Yeah. So, yes. So first off, we're watching Take Shelter, which is from 2011. Where can people watch that, Diane?
On Max. If you have Max, you can watch it on Max.
Perfect. And that has Michael Shannon, Jessica Chastain, so that's pretty fun. We love Jessica Chastain here.
Yes, you do.
We also, I like Michael Shannon as well. I mean, he's pretty cool. I really like him a lot of things. And then the other one,
Stewart listed too. Which Stewart is it?
Which Stewart is it? That's the question of our time.
I have it listed.
Tova Stewart. She's a little girl.
Oh well. I was all excited for you.
I know. I was excited too. But and then next we have Melancholia, which is the Lars von Trier movie. Both these are called also thrillers, by the way. Well, that one's more sci-fi. Sci-fi drama. 2011. Where people watch that, Diane?
On Tubi, our favorite.
Tubi.
Favorite streaming service.
We love Tubi here. Kristen Dunst is in that one, so that's
and Donald Sutherland.
Oh,
you think he could play the bad guy?
That's interesting. I don't know. I'm really interested in watching that. We'll see if it's good. That's the one that's very long, and
oh, great,
and
Melancholy. Yeah,
it's Kiefer Sutherland's in that one.
It's Kiefer. I just looked it up and went, oh, that was Kiefer. Never mind.
So it's Kiefer, Alexander Skarsgård, John Hurt's in it. Mm-hmm. Which that's always, I like, last time John Hurt was on the show, was with Tilda Swinton. It was in that movie we just referenced earlier, The Only Lovers Left Alive. And I'll tell you, I love just discovering John Hurt roles. Because,
the Skarsgård's dad and son, right?
Yeah, Stellan and Alexander.
Yeah, they're both in there. Wow. Yeah, I love watching movies where John Hurt just shows up.
Because he's just there. He comes to play every time. Like that's yeah. I'm just shocked by how he's just like, and I'm going to take this 100% seriously. And he's just like, I'm going to come out here to the plate and I'm going to hit a home run and then I'm going to leave. And it's just every time I'm like, oh, okay.
With everybody at my desk.
Yeah.
Just because I can.
Yeah. And it's just like, well, no, I mean, if that's, you can do that and you are, good on you. But yes, so that's the two films we're watching: Take Shelter and Melancholia. So keep us in your prayers. And yes, that's the alarm. That means that we're done.
It's the alarm. We're done.
That's it. That's the show. Enjoyed talking Michael Fassbender movies with you, Diane.
As I did with you, Cade. Great. As always.
Yes.
So I always look forward to our weekly get-togethers.
Yes. And so, yeah, that's the show. If you enjoyed Double Feature Movie Club, remember on Sundays, you can watch our live streams on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Cade Thomas. Or you can listen to it next day as a podcast. They go out Monday mornings, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to support us, you can follow us on social media on Instagram, Threads, X, at Double Feature MC. We post a lot of really cool things. So specifically on our Instagram, we have, little vertical 60-second reviews of each of these movies, and those are really fun. And so, yeah, check those out and follow us. Watch people do, Diane, whenever they see us anywhere.
Follow us, check the box, like us, leave a reply or a comment, and send Cade emails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's it, right?
Yeah. Click all the buttons.
All the buttons. Click them all. In fact, I just clicked on a button and now I can see all of Ava's comments.
You didn't see that at all?
No. It doesn't pop up for me, so I have to click on a little button. And now I see them.
Leave the dog alone.
Dancing dogs. That's right. And leave the dog alone. That's right. Mm-hmm. Leave the dog alone. Oh, yeah. You should have heard me, Ava, when I was watching that movie. I was like, I'm so glad Ava's not watching this movie.
I know.
Because he was sending the treats over the dog, and I thought, oh, man, he's going to kill the damn dog. And he didn't. He just gave him a nice nap. Mm-hmm. But anyway, even though...
The dog slept through a lot.
He slept through a lot. They almost destroyed that house.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I understand why that wasn't a notable actor, because...
Yeah.
If we know how he treats just insert shots, I can't imagine how grueling it is to be that guy.
Those poor two stuntmen.
I know.
Think about it.
I mean, that's got to be a woof.
That had to be rough.
Yeah.
Had to be rough.
And we don't get a lot of...
you knew you were in a movie, because there's no way Michael Fassbender would have beat that guy. Mm-hmm. It would have never happened in a million years. But the way they beat him was even worse. So. Mm-hmm. I just, because that was almost comedic too. I love the way that throughout that movie, David Fincher was giving us a little bit of comedy all the way through it. Mm-hmm. And these little Easter eggs to kind of watch for. That was enjoyable.
He has this theory about humanity that we are all like sick.
Well, yeah.
And he's like, that's his sort of. He's like, I made my whole career off of that, and so that's what he does. These little things that are that I don't know. So that so that's his theory on people and everything. Well, that's our show. That's Double Feature Movie Club.
Click all the buttons. All the buttons. It's a thumbs up. The like.
The like.
And all of
yes.
it. Yes.
Thumbs up on everything that you see.
follow, and subscribe.
Yes. Well, that's thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. We'll be talking apocalyptic visions, Take Shelter, and Melancholia here. Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Ollie, seriously. Dude.